Ladies and gentlemen, breaking news for Palantir Technologies as they have just recently announced the date for their fourth quarter earnings and for the report of their fiscal year in 2023. As you can see here, straight from the source on Palantir.com, right on their investor relations page, you see right here the announcement that the release and of their webcast will be released on Monday, February 5th. Post-market. Following the close of the U.S. markets, Palantir will host a webcast to discuss its results at 3 p.m. MT. Now, talking about that, you can see this live webcast and replay will be available at investors.palantir.com. And on top of that, this is getting pushed up basically a full week here. Originally, we thought earnings was going to be happening February 13th. We're going to be talking about this. Talking about the price action. If you're new to the channel or a returning viewer, we've been doing daily videos and specifically looking at Palantir. So make sure you hit that like button, subscribe for daily videos. And of course, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm collecting all the data and dispatching it to you. Now, for price action today, Palantir does a good job holding at the 16s. And the reason why I say a good job holding at the 16s at this zone is because in the recent history for Palantir trading, there hasn't been a lot of consolidations at the 16s. And what we do have today in terms of the overall market is that stocks kind of typically fell across the board as the Fed came, and the Fed, from a Fed governor, they talked about a hawkish comment on the need for not having to have speedy interest rate cuts. And this could have been happening in a result of the December inflation report that came in at 3.4% compared to the expected 3.2. Now, talking about that, Palantir, like I said, did a good job, only down about 1.5%. All global indexes here down about, about basically consolidation at 0.5%. What we talk about with Palantir and why the 16s is important is because if we zoom out and look historically here at price action, before we had that Q3 earnings report that was released that really accelerated Palantir to break its $20 strong resistance point and set its recent 52-week year-to-date high, that's last year now, but at 21.85, Palantir typically likes to trade between 13 and 16. And we talked about this before, really at around its 200 moving day average, which is at about $15. So the fact that Palantir here is sitting here at the 16s and holding support, there could be a possibility of any bullish news that could be coming. And it's great to see that this earnings report is being bumped up a week early that could reassume the $17 level of support. And if Palantir has a great earnings report and we see them smash the earnings, we're going to be talking about that in just a second, we could see retesting at about that $20 level of resistance, which is a physical and a psychological point, because that is the next increment that would bring Palantir into the mid-20s. Now, talking about the original and what we're expecting, what Wall Street is expecting in terms of analysts. With that, you have earnings per share is at 8 cents. That is going to be the guess. This would represent and would mark a year-over-year growth of 100%. And alongside with that, you also have a revenue estimate of $602 million. Now, why I think we could possibly see a retesting and especially a reassumption of that $17 level of support for Palantir is because the earnings per share revisions in the last 90 days has just been increased by 7. This recently on Seeking Alpha, the report here just a few days ago, showed us that there was 9 bullish earnings per share revisions in terms of the actual expectations on what Palantir is going to deliver. This increased by 7, and now we see 16 earnings per share revisions in the last 90 days. If you couple that with the announcement here that this earnings day is being pushed up now, basically a whole week, and at Monday, February 5th, following the close of the market, things could be looking great to start the year. And this is on top of the analyst and what we've seen, not just in the Q3 earnings, but as we've seen the gap profitability that's been established for the last 4 quarters. And with that, I know I'm saying with that a lot, but we keep continuing on here with that gap profitability brings the criteria inclusion that can be met for the S&P 500. When this is going to happen, we don't know for sure, but it should happen sometime in 2024. That's what the expectations are. Quickly looking at the options here in terms of volatility, we still have a decent amount of trading volume at that $19 and at that $20 strike price for the end of the week expirations. Looking into next week, what you do have is a decent amount still at that 17s and at the 18s, but interesting to see the implied volatility that has picked up today in expirations that's going to be happening in just about 3 market days right here. Now, with Palantir, and I think a catalyst that's really bullish for the next quarter earnings is what we've seen in terms of AIP. And specifically looking at AIP and announcing AIP right here is with the boot camp, is with the customer growth that we have seen. And looking at the Q3 earnings report here with the actual commercial growth that we have seen for Palantir Technologies. We've seen commercial revenue that is continuing to grow as they've established and extended critical contracts with these different clients. And this brings diversification to their clientele and helps bring increased revenue metrics to the table, because Palantir typically has relied on these governmental revenue, and this increased 12% year over year in the last earnings report, which is great, but these can be kind of lumpy, stumpy, and jumpy in terms of the actual revenue frequency that comes in. The commercial revenue is what I've really been looking at, and what has been keeping me bullish on Palantir specifically, considering this grew 23% year over year to $251 million, and specifically the U.S. commercial revenue grew 33% year over year. So we have some important catalysts that can kick Palantir back into high gear as it's sitting between this $15 to $20 price zone. And we're seeing here that even bullish articles coming out, according to Investor Place, saying that just a bit of positive news could drive PL to the next stock rally. Now, with that, one of the biggest criticisms that we should kind of address the few final moments of this video is the speculation. There's a lot of speculation behind Palantir. We've seen this that has correlated with the AI bubble that we've seen with the amount of money coming into AI. Specifically, if we even look at NVIDIA is continuing to set these year to date and these all-time highs. We see NVIDIA up another 3% today at 563. Even though we had the Fed come up with their comments, even though we had an actual stumble across the global market indexes, NVIDIA is still continuing to accelerate. And as one of the big blue chip stocks that has a lot of resources within their AI development in terms of a hardware perspective, Palantir coming in here on the software side of things and being a leading competitor within the industry is what has kept me bullish on the outlook for 2024 for PLTR. Now, like I said, what's the biggest criticism? That's its valuation. Tech stocks do have a high valuation behind that. So if you're a value-oriented investor, it may not be the most attractive or maybe one of the biggest concerning pieces of financials that you see with Palantir. However, that's just kind of the bet and more of a speculative AI play right now. And in terms of Palantir, if it does come down in price, gets more attractive, that could be more attractive for those value-oriented investors and for the bulls that are looking to either dollar cost average or that have been sitting on the sideline on the watch list waiting to get in at a cheaper price. That's all I'm going to have for you guys. We'll be excited for the earnings. Of course, we'll be keeping you guys up to date. Take care.